Warning, this video contains spoilers. The true dragons, these supreme beings of the world of Tensura who share the same primordial origin as the creator god himself, represent the most powerful species in this universe. Thanks to the spectacular resurrection of Veldanava and the birth of an entirely new true dragon, the 6 true dragons are now all gathered within the world of Tensura, forming a terrifying constellation of absolute power. Endowed with an abnormal strength reminiscent of the most devastating natural cataclysms, they exert an influence and level of threat comparable to planetary-scale disasters, capable of reshaping entire continents with a single flap of their wings. This is why, in this video, we dive deep into a comprehensive analysis, a complete explanation of each of the 6 true dragons, their most recent feats in the latest volumes, and an astonishing dissection of this overwhelming power that defies all imagination. In the world of Tensura, these true dragons stand as the race at the absolute pinnacle of the hierarchy, with only 4 known representatives throughout the entire universe, until these recent events that completely disrupted the balance. Far from being mere living creatures, true dragons regard their draconic form as nothing more than a temporary shell, a fleeting vessel for their immortal essence. They embody the perfect and paradoxical fusion of the positive attributes of life energy and the negative attributes of destructive magic, standing at the very apex of elemental spirits. All other dragons and draconic monsters that inhabit Tensura are merely degraded imitations of these titans, material beings with a physical body inspired by, yet vastly inferior to, the true dragons, and sentient races worship them as living deities, sources of infinite fear and boundless admiration. Regarded as conscious manifestations of natural energy or the primordial elements themselves, some true dragons need only move to summon apocalyptic storms, spreading chaos across hundreds of kilometers, a recurring phenomenon in the narrative, where their mere presence alters the skies and the seas. They are constantly compared to roaming natural disasters, such as the crushing intensity of their aura. Even without engaging in combat, the astronomical quantity of magicals they passively exude is so dense that it acts as a lethal poison to most living beings. Approaching a true dragon without protection is tantamount to a death sentence, as their emanations saturate the air with the toxicity that dissolves life itself. Wherever they choose to reside, the environment undergoes a radical transformation under the influence of these excessive magicules, giving rise to unique monsters of extraordinary power that absorb massive quantities of them. Within the work, the most iconic examples are Rimuru and Charybdis, both born directly from the residual aura of the Ciel imposed upon Veldora, as detailed in the early arcs of the light novel. If one of them were to run rampant without restraint, it could plunge the entire world into total annihilation, unleashing cataclysmic energy that shakes the very foundations of reality itself. This is precisely why, within the monster threat ranking system used by humanity, based on the official assessments of adventurers and nations, they are classified at the absolute highest tier, Catastrophe, a rank almost exclusively reserved for true dragons, alongside a select few exceptional demon lords. True dragons are fundamentally immortal entities. Even when completely annihilated, they inevitably revive through the reincarnation of their soul into a new body, although the personality of that individual is entirely different, an eternal cycle of endless rebirth. This is precisely the philosophical point that Rimuru raised in front of Veldora. Is a new body that inherits memories still the same person or a complete stranger? Veldora and the others argue that the presence of memories alone is sufficient to affirm identity, a viewpoint rooted in Rimuru's pre-transmigration ethics. This debate brilliantly illustrates the gap in moral values between monsters and humans, or between reincarnated individuals and natives of the world, a pivotal moment that highlights the cultural conflicts at the very heart of Tensei Shitara Slime Data Ken. However, figures deeply connected to the true dragons, such as Gaia or Feldway, the latter being an angelic primordial with highly questionable schemes, adopt an opposing perspective. If reincarnation alters the personality, then it is indeed a distinct individual. Since the soul carries both personality and memories, and since only memory persists while personality, the essence that shapes character, diverges. Gaia and Feldway's conclusion that this is a different being appears to touch the very core of the fundamental laws. Governing this universe, a profound truth revealed within the most esoteric arcs of the light novel. Among the 4 true dragons reigning over the world as undisputed pinnacles of power, Veldora Tempest stands out as one of them, the youngest of the 4 brothers bearing the legendary title of Storm Dragons. His partner is none other than the protagonist himself, Rimuru Tempest, founder of the monster nation of Tempest. The undisputed master of wind, as well as space and water in all their splendor, Veldora needs only to move to unleash devastating hurricanes, a capability that perfectly embodies the catastrophe rank, as seen in the initial devastation described in Volume 1 of the light novel. Among all the true dragons, he possesses the most colossal reserve of magicules, an ocean of energy that once made him a raw, uncontrollable force, spreading destruction without purpose or restraint. But everything changed with his encounter with Rimuru. By joining the Tempest Federation, Veldora underwent a tremendous evolution, acquiring not only refined techniques, unique skills, and devastating ultimate skills, such as advanced spatial manipulation, but also tactical mastery that elevated him to the level of his 2 elder sisters, Velzard and Velgrynd, as demonstrated during epic confrontations in the most recent volumes. His personality, an irresistible blend of suppressed loneliness, fervent attachment to bonds of friendship, kizuna in Japanese, which he cherishes above all else, insatiable curiosity, and a sharp intellect that makes him both unpredictable and fascinating. Deeply influenced by Rimuru's memories of manga, video games, and otaku culture, his humanoid combat style, marked by a muscular, charismatic silhouette, incorporates poses and strategies drawn directly from these works, to the point of becoming a living parody. He even goes so far as to quote twisted proverbs, iconic anime lines, or cult gags with disarming confidence. Yet Veldora is absolutely serious about one thing. He venerates manga as sacred scriptures, treating them with near religious reverence, adding an irresistibly comedic layer to his iconic character. In Volume 23 of the light novel, his role was primarily focused on providing invaluable support in battle without dominating individual showcases, but with remarkable effectiveness. Lacking flamboyant solo performances, he nevertheless charges onto the battlefield as reinforcement against the mythical Beast King, taking the front line to bring it down with his storm-fueled fury. Against Ivorage, he delivers crucial tactical support, shielding allies and stabilizing the fight. These discreet yet decisive interventions perfectly illustrate how Veldora excels at becoming the indispensable force for those he cherishes, a loyal pillar amid the final turmoil of the story. In the final battle that shook the very foundations of the world, Veldora deliberately chose to become a core, willingly accepting the role of Rimuru's unwavering and honorable support, allowing Rimuru to deploy his entire strategy without the slightest concern. Rimuru himself must have felt a profound sense of serenity knowing that Veldora was guarding his rear, a reassuring presence that undoubtedly contributed to the ultimate victory. Until the very last second, Veldora fulfilled his duty with exemplary rigor and loyalty, displaying absolute professionalism that made him incredibly charismatic and awe-inspiring in the eyes of all. Regarded as one of the most powerful true dragons in the history of the world, his strength fully lives up to this legendary reputation, since Ciel optimized and harmonized his existence by eliminating all imperfections and energy waste. Veldora has reached a level where even Velzard, his terrifying elder sister, openly acknowledged that he had become far stronger than before. His existence now possesses a colossal energy value of 88,126,579, an astronomical figure that defies comprehension. By comparison, a newly awakened demon lord or a high-ranking saint generally caps at only a few million at most, highlighting just how abnormal and monstrous this quantity of magicules truly is. To prevent this overwhelming energy from literally overflowing and exploding, Veldora must regularly release a portion of his normally restrained aura, a phenomenon reminiscent of the inherent physical constraints faced by the most powerful true dragons. In terms of abilities, his insatiable thirst for knowledge first manifested as the unique skill Investigator, which later evolved into the ultimate skill Faust during Rimuru's ascension to the rank of a true demon lord. Then, during the war against the Eastern Empire, it transcended once more to become the ultimate skill Nyarlathotep, a name inspired by Lovecraftian mythology that Veldora greatly cherishes. This supreme ability encompasses an arsenal of sub-skills, each more terrifying than the last. Thought, acceleration, all of creation, analytical appraisal, probability manipulation, parallel existence, pursuit of truth, space-time manipulation, and multi-dimensional barrier. This perfectly balanced set excels equally in one-on-one combat and large-scale engagements, granting an absolute versatility that is rarely matched. Among these, the two most remarkable sub-skills are without question probability manipulation and pursuit of truth. The former allows an event with even an infinitesimal chance of occurring to be amplified until it becomes a certainty, transforming the impossible into tangible reality, a power that directly defies the very laws of causality themselves. The latter enables the instant reading of an opponent's skills while simultaneously deducing within a fraction of a second the optimal solution to any situation, placing it at the uncontested pinnacle of analytical and cognitive type abilities. In the past, Veldora relied exclusively on his overwhelming physical specifications and completely neglected pure technique. However, after devouring thousands of manga volumes within Rimuru's stomach, this dimensional space that became his personal library, he came to understand the crucial importance of technical mastery. His evolution was nothing short of explosive. He even invented an original combat style, the mysterious Veldora-style killing arts, directly inspired, as many strongly suspect, by the legendary Avan style from the manga Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai. Thanks to this, he can now compete on equal footing in humanoid form with technical monsters like Milim, or even with the legendary heroes regarded as the strongest in history, something that would have been unthinkable in the past. Although he is still steadily progressing in this area, Veldora demonstrated during the final battle a level of mastery that allows him to stand his ground without any difficulty against opponents who are theoretically superior in raw specifications. In terms of combat arts, Veldora has displayed an impressive repertoire throughout the series. The most famous is undoubtedly Stormblast, his ultimate technique developed jointly with Rimuru during the war against the Eastern Empire. This attack begins with the invocation of the spell Thunderstorm, which disrupts space itself and projects chaotic beams of light in all directions. Individually, these rays are harmless, but when they intersect at specific points, they generate an explosion of devastating power. Thanks to Nyarlathotep's probability manipulation, Veldora can force this reaction to occur with 100% certainty, transforming a random technique into an absolute weapon. Since opponents are generally unaware of the underlying mechanism, even Velgrynd, despite her immunity to many attacks, sustained significant damage, a resounding feat in the history of the series. During the Great Celestial Confrontation, he also unveiled other devastating arts, Dragon Claw, an ultra-fast slash capable of severing dimensional bonds, Wing Blade, in which he vibrates the wings of his clones at high frequency to turn them into invisible blades, and Stormfang, a punch that concentrates the full power of Ruined Tempest directly into the impact. Finally, the technique that delivered the decisive blow to Dagruel is his absolute ultimate, Fertile Paradox, a curse that uses the target's own energy as fuel to inflict irreversible damage across a wide area, impossible to evade or resist, a terrifying personal creation that marks the pinnacle of his arsenal. Regarding special capabilities, Veldora can operate without the slightest hindrance even within the suspended world, or within dimensions where information itself is frozen, as demonstrated during his confrontations with Dagruel and in the final battle. Against Dagruel in particular, he pushed probability manipulation even further by combining it with parallel existence and space-time manipulation. He is thus able to imperceptibly swap his position with one of his clones without the enemy realizing it, even while under active analysis. This stratagem irresistibly recalls the famous feint by Yami Yugi against Pegasus in Yu-Gi-Oh! Using magical hats, a deliberate nod that fans absolutely love. Velgrynd is considered as a particle overflowing with infinite benevolence. The mere information that she is the sister of Veldora, that being often likened to a natural catastrophe, already allows one to realize just how extraordinary and impressive her existence is. Velgrynd, who belongs to the Eastern Empire and who has appeared discreetly but regularly since the beginning, is a terrifying existence that demonstrates her power with overwhelming firepower during breathtaking combat displays where she dominates everything in her path. Moreover, By traveling beyond dimensions to explore worlds, she has acquired great patience and has experienced additional impressive growth. The Eastern Empire, which has been present since the beginning of the story, has as its full official name the Nazca Namrium Ulmeria United Eastern Empire. It is a country with a warlike temperament that can launch wars depending on circumstances, but which maintained a very fragile balance with the territories of the Demon Lords and the influence of Veldora. This balance was broken by Rimuru, leading to all kinds of complicated situations. Compared to the countries of the West, it is often designated as the East or simply the Empire, and exchanges between them are quite rare. Under Emperor Rudra Nam Ulnaska, since the founding of the Empire, it took 2,000 years to build an extremely powerful and solid political and military system. Originally a small country, it absorbed the great magical kingdom of Namrium and the Eastern Union of Ulmeria to take its current form. All citizens swear absolute loyalty to Rudra, and political and military sovereignty is entirely in his hands. By advocating a hegemonic ideology, with an army where strength is considered everything, and a system of total meritocracy based on power, this pure combat nation has, for 2,000 years, integrated neighboring states through its overwhelming military force. The Empire actively integrates the scientific technologies of otherworlders, possesses infantry whose bodies have been strengthened by magic, and counts many very powerful otherworlders in numbers far superior to other countries. The privileged treatment they receive is exceptional, which makes it possible to have many holders of unique skills and to rapidly advance their analysis in a perfect, virtuous cycle. The Imperial Army possesses 3 main divisions. The Armored Division, equipped with tanks and modern weaponry, symbol of the Empire's technology. The Magic Beast Division, which captures monsters across the world and genetically modifies them to control their power, symbol of the Empire's strength. And the Composite Division, endowed with unknown power, poorly suited to organized actions but representing a major symbol of the Empire. There also exists the Order of Rudra's Knights, the Imperial Guardians, making this empire a true military power worthy of a war state. However, even setting aside all these divisions, the existence of Velgrynd, the partner of Emperor Rudra, is the most problematic of all. Velgrynd is this mysterious figure of the Eastern Empire who acts under the false identity of Marshall in order to conceal her true nature. In reality, she is a true dragon, the legendary dragon sister who has lived longer than Veldora, known as the Scorch Dragon. She literally unleashes attacks based on heat, but her true essence is acceleration. Her human form is that of a blue-haired beauty with a cold and magnificent face. The beautiful legs that can be glimpsed from her dragon-ornamented Chinese dress are truly erotic. Well, okay, I think I'm getting carried away here, right? In the game where Gaia and Rudra use humans and monsters as pieces, Velgrynd supported Rudra for many years. Let us now explain how Velgrynd became Rudra's partner. Several thousand years ago, in the world of that era where human nations were constantly in armed conflict, a situation of incessant wars prevailed. In this context, the hero Rudra wished to unify humanity to create a world without poverty or inequality, where everyone could live with a smile. Not thinking that this would be easy, Rudra bet on this small chance and, with the cooperation of Veldanava, began to move toward the unification of the world. As part of this ambitious objective, Veldanava first advised Rudra to gain recognition from Gaia, the uncontested sovereign of the world, which led the hero to launch a direct and audacious challenge against him. During this period, Velgrynd, informed that her sister Velzard resided in the frozen lands of the north, made a habit of visiting them regularly. Observing the titanic clashes between Gaia and Rudra quickly became her daily ritual, a spectacle of which she never tired. Gaia always maintained overwhelming superiority, yet Rudra refused with fierce determination to be crushed and relentlessly returned to the charge despite crushing defeats. This unshakable perseverance and iron will eventually deeply move Velgrynd, who gradually felt irresistibly drawn toward him. However, their legendary battles seemed to promise no outcome and their visions of the world diverged too deeply. They therefore ended up agreeing to settle their dispute once and for all through a game of colossal scale. The content of this game was implacable. Neither of them could intervene directly with their own powers. Only their respective pieces, humans and monsters used as pieces on the chessboard of the world, would decide who would obtain absolute domination over the planet. If Rudra emerged victorious, Guy pledged to fully cooperate in the realization of his utopian ideal. For Guy, who knew better than anyone the stupid and greedy nature of high humans, Rudra's dreams resembled beautiful illusions impossible to realize. Nevertheless, with his generous and benevolent character, Guy accepted to participate in this long game. Thus began a titanic game that would last more than 2,000 long years without ever reaching a clear conclusion, continuing until the contemporary era where Rimuru and his companions lived their adventures. At the launch of this game, Velzard was already aligned with Guy's side, placing Rudra's side from the outset in a clearly unfavorable situation. Faced with this obvious imbalance, Velgrynd decided to stand beside Rudra and become his unfailing support. Thus, Velgrynd established herself as the founding pillar of the Eastern Empire, reigning as the source of supreme power. Although she possesses a resolutely warlike and combative personality, her absolute priority remains the fulfillment of Rudra's dearest wishes. For many long years, she voluntarily kept her existence and her true form in the greatest secrecy. It is precisely thanks to this strict policy of information concealment that the news of Velgrynd's presence within the Eastern Empire never reached Tempest. However, as soon as she judged that something risked hindering Rudra's plans, her attitude would change completely. In the current world where Rimuru evolves, while Rudra seriously undertook to seize the entire world, he regarded the existence of his younger brother Veldora, as well as that of Rimuru, as major and troublesome obstacles. Velgrynd then no longer hesitated to abandon her anonymity, revealing the appearance she had long concealed and descending personally onto the battlefield to confront her enemies. Even Veldora, likened to a true natural catastrophe, deeply feared his elder sister. The true power of Velgrynd far surpasses everything one can imagine, to the point of forcing the united forces of Tempest to wage battles of extreme and relentless difficulty. The fundamental essence of Velgrynd's powers lies in acceleration. She is capable of accelerating not only her own attacks and movement speed, but literally all surrounding phenomena, without any exception. She has thus accomplished astonishing feats, such as the instantaneous transfer of an entire fleet of distant flying ships through a space-time connection, or even the attraction of people from far-off lands by extraordinary means. Climate control also forms part of her fundamental abilities, and each time she uses it, she provokes the wonder and stupefaction of all those around her. Thanks to this property of acceleration pushed to the extreme, her attacks generate an absolutely phenomenal quantity of heat and destructive power, allowing her to consume and reduce to ashes any opponent in the blink of an eye. Velgrynd also excels in the precise control of magicules. She was in fact sincerely concerned that her brother Veldora had remained for so long incapable of properly mastering his own flow of magicules. However, when she observed that Veldora had progressed far beyond her expectations thanks to the precious teachings of Rimuru, she willingly acknowledged this impressive growth. Faced with a Veldora who was beginning to take pride in his new attainments, she decided to grant him the supreme privilege of a full-power battle as a reward for his audacity. By directly infusing her ultimate skill Riguel into her attacks, Velgrynd unleashes an explosive force of devastating magnitude. Enveloped in her cardinal aura that consumes everything in its path, her legendary cardinal acceleration concentrates the entirety of her combat aptitudes into a fulgurant and irresistible charge. She herself considered that this technique possessed enough power to fell even opponents of the caliber of Gaia or Velzard. Moreover, this ultimate skill includes the faculty Parallel Existence, which allows her to fully divide her consciousness to exist simultaneously in several distinct and autonomous bodies. This particularly pernicious and fearsome ability was born from Velgrynd's dearest desire, to remain constantly at Rudra's side while mercilessly eliminating all those who might hinder him. With only one of her parallel existences, she succeeded in confronting and pushing to defeat the three primordial girls before their complete awakened Demon Lord evolution. Velgrynd has shown that she could create up to 6 perfect and identical clones, and it is still unknown whether she is capable of going beyond. This perfectly illustrates just how much the species of true dragons constitutes a legendary and completely abnormal race, far exceeding the bounds of common sense. Regarding the conflict between Tempest and the Eastern Empire, the hero Rudra, whom Velgrynd cherishes more than anything originally possessed, the ultimate skill Uriel. However, following an exchange between the latter and the ultimate skill Michael held by Veldanava, Rudra's personality gradually began to deteriorate in a worrying manner. Indeed, ultimate skills are intimately linked to the soul of their possessor. Over the course of his many successive reincarnations, Rudra's soul was slowly but surely eaten away and corrupted by Michael's influence. Then Michael, who had completely taken possession of Rudra's body, used his ability Regalia Dominion to succeed in totally dominating all beings endowed with angelic-type ultimate skills. Yet Velgrynd herself possessed the angelic-type ultimate skill Raguel, so she was dominated without even realizing it in the slightest, completely without her knowledge. It was precisely this situation that triggered the outbreak of the war between Tempest and the Eastern Empire. Tracing back to the origin of the events, the meteoric and spectacular development of Tempest, which attracted all eyes on the world stage, contributed greatly to it, but the decisive and crucial element was indeed the total loss of control, the uncontrollable rampage of the ultimate skill Michael, or rather the Mana's Michael, because at that point he had already transcended the status of a mere ultimate skill. And within the framework of this titanic war, Rimuru finds himself forced to confront representatives of the most powerful race that exists, the True Dragons, without the slightest possibility of escape. During Velgrynd's battle against Rimuru's camp, she found herself directly confronted with Veldora, who constituted Tempest's final and ultimate line of defense. As it was a confrontation between two true dragons, the two opponents deployed their maximum power without restraint and engaged in an epic and relentless duel where neither took a single step back. In a simple, ordinary quarrel, Velgrynd would no doubt have crushed her brother without effort, but at that precise moment, Veldora was equipped with the ultimate skill Faust. Velgrynd launched full-power attacks such as Burning Breath and Burning Embrace, all infused with her ultimate skill Raguel. But thanks to Faust's astonishing and absolute analytical capacity, each of them was rendered totally ineffective, neutralized, and made futile. Consequently, Velgrynd abandoned the idea of defeating him in single combat and radically changed strategy by shifting to a system of close cooperation with Kondo to deal with Veldora together. During the battle, Veldora, exhilarated at having been acknowledged by his elder sister, let himself be carried away by his enthusiasm and opened a gap that his opponents exploited without mercy, but facing both his sister and Kondo at the same time proved indeed extremely difficult. Veldora took Kondo's judgment head-on and suffered irreparable and devastating damage. At that critical moment, Rudra activated the skill Regalia Dominion, thus succeeding in dominating Veldora with total success. Veldora, intuitively sensing that this domination exerted by the skill could potentially extend all the way to Rimuru via the Soul Corridor, chose to sever himself the sacred link that united him with Rimuru. However, the sudden loss of this connection was instantly perceived by Rimuru, who felt a furious and burning anger toward the opponent who had just stolen from him the precious bond with his ally. The dominated Velgrynd, accompanied by the now dominated Veldora, then turned together against Rimuru. In other words, Rimuru now had to find a way to recover Veldora while simultaneously fighting two true dragons. Rimuru first thought to cancel the domination over Veldora, but this attitude made Velgrynd feel that she was being despised and underestimated, which drove her into black rage. From the very first movement, she unleashed without any restraint her ultimate secret art, Cardinal Acceleration. Yet at that moment, Rimuru's ultimate skill, Raphael, had already evolved into Ciel, and Rimuru's true power far surpassed that of the true dragons by a comfortable and overwhelming margin. As a result, it was Ciel who took charge of handling the opponent Velgrynd, while Rimuru focused exclusively on lifting Veldora's domination. Rimuru succeeded in absorbing Veldora to cancel his domination, but immediately afterward, this time it was Velgrynd who entered a black fury. Indeed, Velgrynd deeply adored her little brother Veldora, and she mistakenly believed that Veldora had been completely devoured and annihilated by Rimuru before her eyes. Veldora, who had been preditized and freed from domination, found himself in a state where he wondered what would happen if he reappeared now, rendering him totally useless for the moment. Velgrynd, overwhelmed by anger, charged directly at Rimuru, but she was easily preditized in turn, and found Veldora inside Rimuru's stomach, then realizing her complete error of judgment. Having learned that she had also lost her precious Rudra, Velgrynd was freed from Michael's domination by Rimuru, allowing her to perfectly understand her own situation. Thanks to Ciel's intervention, the ultimate skills Riguel and Uriel were fused for her, thus granting her the new ultimate skill Cthulhu. Immediately, she set out in pursuit of Rudra's soul fragments scattered across the dimensions and departed on a journey toward other worlds. Concerning Velgrynd's growth, originally as the most powerful true dragon, the second most powerful excluding Veldanava, she possessed a very confident and arrogant side. However, after her defeat against an apparently relaxed and carefree slime, she acquired great caution and learned to reflect with calm and composure. After her battle against Rimuru between the timeless worlds, Ciel applied modifications to her ultimate skill Cthulhu, which she perfectly integrated as her own, acquiring a power that surprised even herself to the highest degree. She also mastered this aptitude of space-time continuous attack, now allowing her to reach the enemy's main body hidden in another dimension through her clones. In the world of Tensei Slime, ultimate skills are considered secret arts unknown to the vast majority, and the fact of possessing one or not greatly influences the outcome of battles. However, what even Gaia had not noticed was that this ultimate skill could still evolve further. Velgrynd having succeeded in completely making it her own, one can consider that her true power has undergone a considerable and impressive increase. Moreover, over the course of her travels through multiple dimensions, Velgrynd acquired mastery of sacred magic. She is now capable of healing even the most severe injuries involving the loss of body parts, and she has been seen regenerating a completely destroyed heart. Although she has not yet used it, she has mentioned the possibility of resurrecting the dead, which suggests that she also possesses this potential ability. Furthermore, thanks to the skill material creation, Velgrynd can now freely manufacture myth-ranked weapons of exceptional quality. Across these various dimensions, she has become a legendary existence whose beauty and power are evoked in numerous myths and ancient tales. In Volume 19 of the light novel, unable to adapt to the suspended world, she failed to react in time. Masayuki's anomaly created a fatal opening, allowing Feldway to launch his attack. This moment nevertheless became the trigger for Rudra's appearance. One could then witness an exchange typical of their almost carefree relationship, where Velgrynd showed herself delighted that Rudra had used his power of his own accord without even asking her. During this battle, Feldway, after retreating, left words implying that he swore to take revenge on Rudra. This perhaps opens the door to a future confrontation between Feldway and Masayuki. Velgrynd truly embodies the pinnacle of stalker-like characters in the world of Tensei Slime. Among all individuals with obsessive tendencies who inhabit this world, she stands out as the one who crosses entire dimensions for the sole purpose of recovering the soul of her beloved Rudra, thanks to her exceptional beauty and to the fact that she is naturally accepted by all those who carry a part of Rudra's soul. She is forgiven many excesses. Yet, if one coldly considers the nature of her actions, her obsessive pursuit behavior far surpasses even that of Diablo himself. Thanks to the ultimate skill Uriel that Ciel granted her, Velgrynd is now capable of precisely perceiving Rudra's soul fragments scattered across dimensions. She then undertook a long journey through dimensions in order to collect these precious fragments one by one. It is important to note that Velgrynd adopts an extremely gentle and indulgent attitude toward all persons possessing a part of Rudra's soul. She easily forgives the most disrespectful words or actions, and does not hesitate to embrace them or give them a kiss upon the very first meeting, allowing herself every imaginable liberty. I would like to have a fragment of Rudra's soul as well, wouldn't you? In the world she traversed through her dimensional leaps, the legend of the goddess Velgrynd spread, a divine beauty who does not hesitate to destroy entire nations if anyone dares to insult or injure the one she loves. Let me now tell you the full story of how Velgrynd ultimately reached Masayuki. As explained previously, Velgrynd underwent an alteration by Ciel that allowed her to obtain the ultimate skill Cthulhu. This skill was born from the perfect fusion between the ultimate skill Raguel that she originally possessed and the Uriel formerly held by Rudra. This new ultimate skill grants her not only the ability to perform jumps to other dimensions, but also to execute attacks across the dimensions themselves. Thanks to Cthulhu's dimensional leap, she can project herself with extreme precision toward the specific world where what she seeks is located. Thus, Velgrynd crossed dimensional barriers multiple times to travel to various parallel worlds and recover Rudra's scattered soul fragments. To collect these souls, the method was always the same. She witnessed the death of the person carrying Rudra's soul in each dimension, then recovered the released soul fragment. However, the worlds she visited were of incredible diversity. She experienced classic sword and magic worlds, worlds devoid of magicules where magic simply did not exist, worlds where scientific civilization had advanced so far that humanity had become entirely mechanized, the world from which Kondo and Hakuro's grandfather came, as well as worlds where angels and demons waged an eternal and unceasing war. In each of these worlds, Velgrynd met Rudra's incarnation, spent time at his side, and witnessed the entirety of his life until its end. This task obviously required colossal and enormous time, which reveals the immeasurable scale of the obsession and love that Velgrynd bears for Rudra. That said, she did not necessarily meet all versions of Rudra across dimensions. Indeed, most of the time, her dimensional leap was triggered when the concerned person was in a mortal crisis situation. Depending on the timing of the leap, it happened that Rudra's incarnation was already dead upon her arrival, and that she could only recover the remaining soul fragment. After thus traversing innumerable dimensions, the final world on which Velgrynd ultimately arrived was precisely the one in which Rimuru had lived before his reincarnation, our modern world. And it was there that she finally met Masayuki, the current reincarnation of Rudra. At the moment she stood before him, all the soul fragments of Rudra that she had collected until then fused instantly with Masayuki's soul. Under the violent shock of this fusion, Masayuki was transferred together with her, and both returned to the Cardinal World, but at different eras. It was therefore only later that Velgrynd was finally able to reunite with Masayuki within Tempest's dungeon. Moreover, Masayuki retains absolutely no memory of the time when he was Rudra, so he perceives Velgrynd only as a beautiful older sister he met just before being projected into another world. Yet, despite this total absence of memory, Velgrynd continues to lavish upon him an absolutely disproportionate amount of love, of an intensity that commands the utmost admiration and leaves no one indifferent. In Volume 18 of the light novel, it is specified that the ultimate skill Raguel, originally granted by Veldanava, was an ability designed to support and amplify the abilities of others. From then on, the very essence of Velgrynd's powers probably resides in this profound will to help and protect Masayuki, her beloved. At that time, Masayuki was already being targeted by Feldway and his accomplices, his life constantly threatened. Indeed, in Volume 19 of the light novel, while Masayuki and Velgrynd directly confront Feldway, the latter takes head-on a devastating blow from the enemy and ends up covered in severe and seemingly irreparable wounds. But it is precisely at this critical moment that a miracle occurs. Masayuki, overwhelmed by burning rage at seeing Velgrynd injured, unwittingly activates his hidden ultimate skill, True Hero. Thanks to this activation, the hero Rudra of his previous life fully resurrects. Rudra seizes, without the slightest hesitation, Velgrynd's parallel existence, infuses into it the power of True Hero, and thus succeeds in summoning Kondo, Damrata, and Granbelt. Moreover, he recovers the ultimate skill Uriel that he once possessed, repelling Feldway and his allies with overwhelming force. It is therefore thanks to this heavy, deep, and obsessive love, worthy of a true stalker, that Velgrynd finally managed to realize her long-awaited reunion with Rudra. So, in the end, is Velgrynd really strong? In the Eastern Empire arc, her power was particularly highlighted and impressive, when she simultaneously confronted, through her parallel existence, the three primordial girls before their awakening, while displaying total ease and composure. This aura of absolute power gave readers an overwhelming sense of despair. Subsequently, after her travels through other worlds where she acquired even greater strength, she is nevertheless seen struggling against Feldway in Volume 19. But things must be put into perspective. That Feldway had absorbed the power of Manus Michael, that of Velzard, and even that of Velgrynd herself, granting him a completely unreasonable magnitude of power. The dispersion of power inherent to parallel existence, which turns into pure attrition during battles between high-level monsters, also worked against her. Velgrynd indeed had to protect what was dear to her while facing such a monstrous opponent. Exploiting an infinitesimal instant of hesitation when she was destabilized by Masayuki's strange behavior, Feldway drove his sword straight into her chest. Velgrynd, pierced through, suffered damage of extreme severity. The situation was then one of absolute despair. In the world of Tensei Slime, one often encounters beings capable of infinite regeneration or devoid of limited lifespan, giving an impression of total invincibility. Yet, at that precise instant, Velgrynd was indeed gravely wounded, with no easy escape whatsoever. In summary, Velgrynd's strength is undeniably among the most impressive in the entire work, but the power inflation of the opposing side is also so phenomenal that her exact position in the hierarchy sometimes becomes difficult to clearly determine. Nevertheless, at the moment of her reunion with Rudra, she completely forgot her severe wounds to let a pure and sincere joy burst forth, confirming once again that she remains a profoundly abnormal and extraordinary existence. Now let us move on to the even more extreme elder sister, the one who can truly be described as genuinely dangerous, Velzard, the jealous elder sister, also known as the Ice Empress. She is the eldest of the 4 true dragons. Her partner, and now official spouse, is Guy Crimson, with whom she entered into an official marriage following a romantic proposal. Cough, cough. But what am I even saying? Wasn't it more like, hey you, from now on we're a couple, got it? Remind me of the scene in the comments. Although her attribute appears to be ice at first glance, her true essence lies in her inherited angelic skills, and thanks to an ability transmitted by her brother, she is also capable of manipulating fixation and stagnation. Among all the true dragons, Velzard is by far the most rational and composed, displaying an outwardly gentle and level-headed personality. She shows particular care toward her family, at least she genuinely believes she does. However, beneath this facade lies a pathological and possessive jealousy. Once she sets her affection on someone or something, she exercises absolute and uncompromising control, chilling Yandere's side that terrifies even the primordials. In Volume 23 of the light novel, Velzard literally unleashed absolute chaos, releasing her icy fury without the slightest restraint until Guy Crimson, her eternal partner, personally intervened to calm her down. It was precisely this solemn marriage proposal, imbued with rare emotional depth, that brought her back to reason and finally allowed her to attain the position she had long desired, officially becoming Guy's wife. Thus, they became a united couple in the eyes of the world, a poignant moment that deeply moved readers with its unexpected tenderness amid the surrounding turmoil. Subsequently, during the confrontation against Ivaruj, she provided decisive support to Guy, protecting his rear with heightened efficiency. In the final battle, she accepted a subordinate position to assist Rimuru, even going so far as to become a critical energy core, a temporary sacrifice that greatly contributed to the overall victory. Velzard thus shone through an active and decisive presence throughout the final events. Among the 3 true dragons still active, excluding Veldanava, Velzard is unanimously considered the most powerful. She even overwhelms both her pre-optimization former self and Veldora with disconcerting ease, as if correcting a wayward child. Only a handful of beings in the universe, including Guy Crimson himself, despite standing at the absolute pinnacle of the world's hierarchy, can be pushed to their limits by her, an irrefutable testament to her overwhelming supremacy. Her energy existence value dangerously approaches that of Veldora, reaching an astronomical level. In terms of sheer magicule quantity, independent of physical abilities or skills, she reigns as the uncontested sovereign among the true dragons. Thanks to her innate abilities, she can regenerate her reserves indefinitely, rendering any concept of energy exhaustion completely foreign to her existence. Velzard also excels through an abnormal level of technical mastery, almost perverse in its perfection. This expertise is so refined that she can cross blades on perfectly equal footing with Guy Crimson himself, an achievement that speaks volumes on its own. Even during her phases of possessive delirium, she casually brushed Milim aside with a mere backhand and simultaneously confronted multiple awakened demon lords while maintaining an insolent margin of superiority, scenes that unambiguously illustrate the dizzying heights of her technical mastery. Milim herself considers Velzard a top priority threat, and no one in the universe would dare question her absolute supremacy in this domain anymore. In terms of skills, she possesses an inherent ability of transcendent power, an ultimate capability bearing a divine name written in angelic script, capable of imposing entirely new laws not established by Veldanava, disregarding all existing rules except those she herself chooses to enforce. This angelic essence manifests fully through her intrinsic skill, Cessation Lost, which is very likely the origin of her legendary ability to stop time. Her current ultimate skill, Cthulhu, was born from an optimization performed by Rimuru, with the explicit purpose of severing any harmful influence of Veldanava over angelic powers. This intervention enabled a natural and perfect harmonization between her innate fixation ability and the angelic forces, resulting in a skill of an entirely different level of performance and stability. Regarding combat arts, although Velzard has not had countless opportunities to fight on screen, each confrontation has served to reveal a terrifying arsenal. The first major art is Eternal World, a world level technique that fully exploits her angelic powers and enables virtually infinite regeneration through the circulation of magicules. The second is Snow Crystal, an absolute defense activated via the fixation of Gabriel, capable of repelling nearly any attack. The third is Air Wall, which instantly solidifies the surrounding atmosphere to create an indestructible prison, a perfect containment technique. The fourth is Freezing Breath, her iconic breath in the form of a wave of diamond dust at absolute zero temperature, a classic breath-type attack with unmatched glacial power. The fifth and ultimate art is Whiteout Absorb, the supreme attack she developed specifically for Gaia. It integrates her intrinsic angelic skill Cessation Lost, the fixation of Gabriel, and a derived form of Leviathan's absorption, all fused into a single maximal absolute offensive, the most devastating technique in her entire repertoire. The creator of the Tensura world, the Star King Dragon Veldanava, a name that resonates like an absolute truth at the very peak of all existence. Belonging to the race of the True Dragons, the highest race in the entire Tensura universe, Veldanava is the eldest of the four dragon siblings, Veldora, Velzard, and Velgrynd. He stands as the undisputed elder of this legendary lineage, the one who precedes and surpasses them all. In volume 23 of the light novel, he finally makes his grand return, his long-awaited resurrection. And just like his subordinate Feldway before him, it didn't take long for him to cause a fair share of chaos and completely unnecessary complications for everyone involved. A real calamity, let's be honest. But he wasn't always like this. At another time, Veldanava was someone truly respectable, someone who fulfilled his role as the creator god with both seriousness and grandeur. And that is exactly what we're going to explore here. A full presentation of Veldanava, a look at what he accomplished during the time when he truly lived up to his title as a creator deity, and of course, a glimpse into his recent catastrophic actions in the latest volumes. The creator of the world and eldest of the true dragon race, Veldanava, known as the Star King Dragon. In terms of appearance, he possesses an overall dark silhouette. One could almost describe him as an inverted version of Feldway, as if Feldway himself had been dyed in pitch-black purity. Or to put it more precisely the other way around, Feldway is ultimately the brighter version of Veldanava, his illuminated reflection. One is the light, the other is the shadow of that same image. His personality? Bold, charismatic, overflowing with deep and genuine emotions, love, passion, and driven by an unshakable will to face any obstacle without ever backing down. It is often said that his nature is strangely reminiscent of Rimuru as he is today, spontaneous, endearing, and possessing an unbreakable resilience. Veldanava was born as a perfect and flawless being, an omniscient and omnipotent existence, what is referred to as the All-One, an entity that knew and controlled absolutely everything. But that absolute perfection came with an equally absolute loneliness. To put an end to that unbearable isolation, he made a radical and irreversible decision to abandon that omnipotence, to relinquish his absolute power. He then used the very force that stood at the origin of that total power, void collapse, the foundational power of all creation and the force capable of annihilating everything, to create the world, structure it, and establish the various systems that still govern it to this day. A colossal undertaking carried out with unmatched dedication. After building this world with such effort and investment, he encountered Gaia and Rudra, and later united with his sister Lucia. From that union, Milim was born. But that happiness did not last. Veldanava and Lucia both perished in a terrorist attack, torn away prematurely from their daughter and their world. As members of the True Dragon race, beings that are inherently immortal, his disappearance was not meant to be permanent. Any dragon that is destroyed is supposed to be reborn somewhere else, elsewhere in the world, or even in the universe. And yet, for a very, very long time, Veldanava seemed to show no will to return, and for good reason. It turns out that many years ago, Veldanava had already returned to existence, in complete secrecy, carefully hiding the fact that he had resurrected. This revelation also definitively put an end to the theory that Rimuru was the reincarnation of Veldanava. Throughout the story, many hints and deliberately ambiguous elements seem to support that intriguing parallel. But in the end, the true nature of the connection between Rimuru and Veldanava is never explicitly clarified. Perhaps the author deliberately left that space open for reader interpretation and speculation. Be that as it may, Veldanava makes a truly explosive entrance in volume 23 of the light novel, carrying with him an ambition as insane as it is devastating, to bring about the total collapse of the world, to reset it entirely. It is with that objective in mind that he appeared in the central world. However, that destructive ambition was abruptly stopped by Rimuru. And as for his long-awaited reunion with Lucia, his beloved wife, it was ultimately Ciel who made that moment possible, granting Veldanava the reunion he had been waiting for over what felt like an eternity. Deep down, it is likely that he is finally at peace. That being said, it's impossible not to notice that his family is quite something. His two sisters are genuine yandere. His younger brother Veldora is an eternal, uncontrollable troublemaker, and he himself nearly brought about the destruction of entire worlds. Honestly, within the True Dragon family, not a single one of them is truly normal. Not one of them is sane. And that's honestly hilarious. In terms of raw power, the former absolute ruler of the world is, unsurprisingly, on a monstrous level. The mere fact that he was able to fight on equal footing with Rimuru is enough to place him among the most overpowered entities in the entire universe. Of course, he has lost void collapse, the very source of his former omnipotence. But he still remains undeniably unmatched among all beings in this world, with the sole exception of Rimuru himself. His existence value is absurdly high, there is no doubt about that. We even have indirect proof of this. After absorbing Veldanava, Ivaraj saw its own existence value skyrocket to astronomical levels, confirming that Veldanava himself operates on a completely different plane from everything else. His technical mastery is just as impressive, far beyond what one might imagine. He possesses a level of combat expertise that once allowed him to effortlessly overwhelm Rudra and Gaia, and it is reasonable to assume that the gap between him and these legendary figures has not significantly diminished over time. That kind of mastery doesn't simply disappear. Moreover, as long as the laws he governs remain in effect, any being operating within his domain cannot even hope to stand against him. A true, serious battle against Veldanava is therefore nearly impossible, except for anomalies like Rimuru or Ivaraj, who transcend those laws in one way or another. Even though he relinquished the ultimate skill that governed the laws of the world, Veldanava still retains higher administrative rights, along with levels of authority that go even beyond that. In practical terms, this means that any attack based on the standard rules of the world has absolutely no effect on him. His battles transcend normal logic altogether, almost like a glitch within the very mechanics of existence itself. Among the clearly identified abilities he possesses in the series, 4 high-tier powers stand out. The first is primitive magic. Already seen in the web novel version, it is a form of magic so advanced that even beings as powerful as Guy Crimson or Milim are incapable of using it. In the Tensura universe, magic fundamentally operates by expressing one's will through magicules, following a certain logic and process. Primitive magic, however, completely transcends that framework. It directly materializes the user's will into real phenomena, without constraints, without any intermediary process. It can even affect ultimate skill users, something that ordinary magic, even at its highest level, is simply incapable of achieving. But primitive magic doesn't just stand out for its power. It represents something fundamentally different from any other form of magic in this universe. All it takes is for the user to will it, to mentally formulate a desire, and the magic activates instantly. No incantation, no intermediary process, no logic to follow. Just raw intent, directly manifesting as a real phenomenon. And above all, it completely ignores every single law of the world. All of them, without exception. This is power in its purest form, unfiltered and unrestricted by any rule of existence. The fact that even Gaia Crimson and Malim are incapable of using it says everything. It's not a matter of available energy nor of analytical ability. Neither of them lacks in those areas, which means that primitive magic operates outside of those parameters altogether, requiring a higher form of authority of a very specific nature in order to manifest. It is a power that transcends the very framework within which all other skills and abilities exist. The second superior ability is soul seizing, an authority that surpasses even the higher administrative rights mentioned earlier. It allows Veldanava to directly intervene on the soul of a living being, completely ignoring all defenses and any attacks that might stand in his way. The target has no means of resistance. Their soul can be seized and extracted regardless of their durability or resistance. Even more remarkable, this ability remains fully functional even within a suspended world, where powers based on the laws of physics are normally blocked or rendered ineffective. It is through this authority that Veldanava was able to tear Rimuru's soul away at the moment they clashed. The fact that it can activate independently of information particles suggests that it shares properties similar to primitive magic, a fundamentally pre-law nature existing prior to the laws of the world themselves. The third is Initialize Heaven, the authority that allows Veldanava to reset the entire world and then reconstruct it from its very foundations. By triggering this absolute reset, even information particles themselves are erased and wiped away, as if they had never existed in the first place. This is precisely why Veldanava chose not to use it in Volume 23, despite his increasingly critical situation. His primary objective was to recover Lucia's soul, and activating this authority would have inevitably destroyed that soul along with everything else, a sacrifice he was not willing to make. It is also worth noting that Ciel is capable of achieving the same feat. The fourth and final one is Beginning Eden, the ultimate divine act through which Veldanava used the power of void collapse to create the world itself, establish its laws, and construct the fundamental structures of all existence. This is the absolute founding act. However, having lost void collapse during the creation of the world, Veldanava can no longer activate this authority. It is now completely inaccessible to him. Ciel, on the other hand, possesses void collapse in near limitless quantities. Not only can she replicate this act of creation as many times as she desires, but she can even go beyond what Veldanava accomplished, reproducing events on a scale that surpasses anything previously imaginable. That covers his abilities. Now let's take a closer look at the journey of this Star King Dragon, a being who has existed since the very origin of the world itself. His life, and the titanic feats he accomplished during the time when he still acted as a true creator god, as recorded in the light novel and official reference materials. The Origins of the World. Veldanava was born as pure will, a perfect and flawless existence, complete and absolute, with nothing else surrounding it. An omniscient and omnipotent being alone within an unchanging void, and that total perfection gave rise to an equally total boredom. It was to put an end to that boredom that Veldanava made the decision to create other wills, and through them, an entire world. The birth of angels and demons. To begin with, and in order to surround himself with assistants and counterparts worthy of him, Veldanava created the Seraphim, the most powerful entities among angels, surpassing even awakened demon lords, drawing them from the great Holy Spirit of light. 7 Seraphim were thus created, and Veldanava personally gave each of them a name. Through this act of naming, they evolved and became the 7 primordial angels, existences standing close to the divine itself. Then, from the shadow cast by that light, the great Holy Spirit of darkness was born, and from that essence, 7 demons in turn emerged. Each of them bore a distinct color from the moment of their birth. These are the beings known as the primordial demons, the birth of the divine ancestor. In order to give rise to and nurture diverse and flourishing civilizations across the world, Veldanava brought forth the divine ancestor, luminous twilight Valentine. However, the high level of immortality inherent to divine ancestors came with a significantly low reproductive capacity. As a result, Veldanava's initial plan to see the divine ancestors multiply failed. Even so, driven by the desire to fulfill Veldanava's expectations, the divine ancestor engaged in countless experiments, gradually giving birth to a wide variety of races throughout the world. The birth of humanity. Multidimensional parallel worlds spread and converged, and within the central world, the first humans appeared, beings known as the High Humans. Veldanava developed a deep love for them and became their protector, entrusting Gaia with the role of mediator. Humanity was progressing at a remarkable pace, but within that same momentum, Veldanava could perceive a disastrous trajectory. If humans continued on that path without restraint, their own pride and internal conflicts would inevitably lead them to extinction within a few millennia. It was then that he encountered Gaia, one of the primordial demons who resided in the central world. Veldanava entrusted him with the role of mediator of this world, asking him to ensure that humanity would remain aware of the threats that existed within it, a way to remind them of humility and prevent their downfall through arrogance. Gaia accepted, and in collaboration with Misery and Rain, he established the Demon Lord system. It was also Veldanava who gave Ramirez her name and assigned her the role of mediator as well, entrusting Rudra with the role of hero. When Veldanava met Rudra, the one who would become the first light-chosen hero, he became both his master and his friend. Rudra held an ambitious ideal to unify the world and establish lasting, universal peace. Veldanava understood better than anyone how difficult such an ideal would be to achieve, nearly impossible in fact. And yet, moved by the burning passion of his disciple, he chose to support him despite the low chances of success. He explained that in order to achieve that ideal, he would first need to gain recognition from Gaia, the current mediator. And so, he sent him to meet him, appointing Dino as Watcher of the Surface World. Veldanava had originally tasked Gaia with suppressing humanity's arrogance in his role as mediator, acting under the form of a demon lord. However, to ensure that this very demon lord would not go out of control, he appointed Rudra as the first hero, a balancing force meant to restrain Gaia should he ever deviate. He ultimately inscribed into the very laws of the world that demon lords and heroes would be bound by causality, engraving into the fabric of reality a cycle of confrontation and balance meant to endure indefinitely. To ensure that this causal link between demon lords and heroes would be properly maintained over time, Veldanava established a new role, that of the Watcher, tasked with overseeing the balance and ensuring that the cycle unfolds according to his design. This role was entrusted to Dino, one of the 7 primordial angels and Veldanava's closest servant. As for Feldway, the first among the 7 primordial angels, he was assigned the mission of monitoring another world in a different dimension. Alongside Dino, it was Pico and Garasha who were entrusted with the supervision of the central world, watching over the course of human existence with vigilant eyes. These 3, Dino, Pico, and Garasha, would later fall from their rank as seraphim and become fallen angels. Marriage with Lucia. Veldanava fell deeply in love with Lucia, Rudra's sister. Until then, he loved humanity as a creator, a distant universal love, the love of a master toward his creations. But with Lucia, something new was born within him, the love of one being for another, the love of a father yet to be, a personal and intimate love he had never known before. After their union, Veldanava transferred the entirety of his power to Milim, the child born from their love, an heir already overflowing with extraordinary power, and so that Milim would not be alone, so that she would not suffer from loneliness, he created with his own hands a spirit dragon, a very special existence, destined to become his own reincarnation and the faithful companion of his daughter, known as Gaia. The disappearance of Veldanava. Having passed on nearly all of his power to Milim, Veldanava was left with only a strength comparable to that of an ordinary human. Even his lifespan had become limited, just like that of mortals. Paradoxically, he welcomed this change. For the first time, he could envision living a normal life alongside Lucia, growing old with her, sharing every moment of a fragile yet precious existence. But fate decided otherwise. Caught in the turmoil of a war between human nations, Veldanava was killed by humans acting as terrorists, and left this world alongside Lucia. As a member of the True Dragon race, beings that are inherently immortal, his resurrection should have been inevitable, a rebirth somewhere at some point. And yet, Veldanava never reappeared before the eyes of the world. Time continued to flow, indifferent. And that absence, that endless waiting, is what gradually broke Feldway. Left in another dimension, waiting for his master for thousands of years, he slowly descended into madness. Now that we have covered Veldanava's journey, let us turn our attention to the major decisions and systems he put in place, the very foundations that make him the true architect of everything we know in this universe. After creating the world, Veldanava wished to see life emerge and flourish within it, but he quickly realized that a purely inert existence could not develop on its own. Foundations were necessary: rules, systems, and internal logic. For life to grow and evolve, living beings needed to be capable of experiencing emotions. And among all emotions, the one that proved to be fundamental, absolutely essential to all development, was desire. So Veldanava designed systems to instill that desire within living beings. But he also understood that if creatures were allowed to grow and desire without limits, the world would eventually descend into a dystopia, a hell of overwhelming power and endless conflict. To counterbalance this, he introduced the concept of death, a necessary counterweight to maintain the balance of any civilization. And finally, so that the souls he had created with such care would not simply vanish into the void, he established the system of reincarnation, a cycle allowing souls to circulate and be reborn across the various worlds he had created. Veldanava, the creator of the Tensura world, established distinct laws for each world he shaped. In the world that concerns us, these laws manifest primarily through magic and skills. By manipulating them, any being is capable of interfering with the fundamental laws of the world. And at an even higher level, there exist skills capable of rewriting those very laws themselves. These are what we call ultimate skills, true instruments of supreme control over the laws of existence. That is precisely why the abilities contained within skills are referred to as authorities, a term directly derived from this logic of laws and governing power. The relationship between administrative privileges, magic skills, and powers. Anyone who possesses administrative privileges, in other words, anyone who holds a skill, is capable of influencing the laws of the world. However, even without administrative privileges, it is still possible to interfere to some extent with those laws by infusing them with intent, a desire transmitted through magicules. That is the fundamental principle that allows magic to activate. Skills, on the other hand, function as authorities that operate over a clearly defined domain of laws. And unlike magic, they do not rely on formulas, but rather on pure energy directly channeled into their system. The powers contained within skills can be seen as automated magic systems. All that is required is to supply them with energy, and they will produce the desired effect, without the need to manually construct a spell. And the more a skill evolves from a normal skill to a unique skill and finally to an ultimate skill, the deeper its ability to interfere with the laws of the world becomes. Very soon, I'll be bringing you a video entirely dedicated to the mechanics of magic in the Tensura universe, where we'll go much deeper into all of this. The 7 ultimate skills of the Virtue series. Among all angelic-type ultimate skills capable of interfering with the laws of the world created by Veldanava, there exist 7 that form the Virtue series, the purest and most fundamental of them all. Michael is the most absolute form of mental control that exists, specializing in psychic domination and absolute type defenses, most notably Castle Guard, a protection that nullifies any attack without exception. It is the most powerful ultimate skill of the Virtue series, and its authority extends over all other angelic skills. It was exchanged with Rudra by Veldanava himself before later evolving into a Manus. Raphael is the power dedicated to the management and administration of the laws of the world, primarily oriented toward support and analysis. In the web novel version of the series, it was Lucia, Rudra's sister, who possessed it. Rimuru later acquired it in the form of the ultimate skill Lord of Wisdom. It is likely that during its time as the unique skill Great Sage, it modified itself numerous times, and that upon evolving, it overcame near impossible probabilities to give birth to a skill that surpassed even the ultimate skill Lord of Knowledge, which it was originally meant to become. Uriel is the power specialized in spatial management and the administration of all forms of events. Rudra also possessed it previously, before it eventually passed into Rimuru's hands. Later on, the remnants of Uriel were fused with Velgrind's ultimate skill Ruguel, giving birth to an entirely new ultimate skill. Ciel is the power that governs the very source of life and manages reincarnation, everything related to the cycle of souls, their rebirth, and their circulation across worlds. Ciel was obtained by Granbel, the light-chosen hero and disciple of Rudra, before being passed on to Chloe, who is now its current holder. Metatron is the power responsible for sorting all laws, preventing any unwanted interference, and selecting pure energy with absolute precision. It was possessed by Leon. Raguel is a power oriented toward support and the amplification of allies. Veldanava entrusted it to Velgrynd. Gabriel is the power dedicated to fixing states and managing unexpected situations, allowing the unstable to be stabilized and enabling flawless responses to the unforeseen. Veldanava entrusted it to Velzard. These 7 ultimate skills form the Virtue series, the 7 abilities that govern the supreme visible power of the world. And beyond them, there are 7 additional ultimate skills belonging to the Angel series, bringing the total number of these foundational origin-level skills to 14. Veldanava, his secret resurrection, and his fall. Long ago, far before anyone realized it, Veldanava had in fact already completed his resurrection, in absolute secrecy, far from all eyes. After having transferred nearly all of his power to Malim, it took him an immense amount of time, almost an eternity, to slowly rebuild even a fraction of what he had lost. This is precisely why he was unable to appear in the central world. He simply did not yet have the means to do so. His power was still too incomplete, too fragmented to allow him to intervene, but when he finally returned, those who had once known him well, Gaia, Velzard, and even Rudra, were stunned to realize that the being standing before them resembled Veldanava, yet was no longer truly him. Something fundamental had changed. His personality bore a deep distortion, an inner fracture that made him unrecognizable to those who had once stood by his side. The reason for this change was tragic. After Lucia's death, Veldanava fell into absolute despair. The loss of his beloved wife stripped him of love, that fundamental emotion he had only discovered so late, and left a wound so deep within his soul that it ultimately twisted his very nature, altering his personality beyond recognition by the time of his resurrection. This was the true nature of his fall. As a god and creator, Veldanava was meant to love all things equally and universally, the world as a whole, without favoring anyone. And yet he had loved Lucia as an individual, a singular, exclusive love that stood in contradiction to the very laws he himself had established. He eventually came to theorize that this deviation had caused a bug within the world itself, that the system he had created had recognized Lucia as an anomaly, a foreign element to be eliminated, and that this was precisely why she had been killed. Faced with that conclusion, as painful as it was inescapable, Veldanava reached a terrifying resolution: to gather the fragments of Lucia's soul scattered across the world's information particles, restore her, and then completely destroy this flawed world that had made the mistake of eliminating her. When his power had recovered enough to take action, the first person he encountered was his own subordinate, Feldway, who dared to resist him. He dismissed him without hesitation, swiftly silencing him. Then he descended into the central world, fully determined, with a single objective in mind: to begin by destroying the world. And that is where Rimuru and Gaia stood in his way, to stop him. With Chloe's support, they managed to hold him back and buy some time. Annoyed by this resistance, and which he considered both insignificant and futile, Veldanava activated his time stop, gathered souls he deemed sufficiently powerful, resurrected them into bodies worthy of their strength, and unleashed them onto the battlefield to spread chaos. He believed these creations would be enough to crush opponents as fragile as the beings of this world. But Rimuru stood before him. Veldanava recognized something exceptional within him, a singularity, a rupture point in the natural order of things, a transcendent existence capable of holding him in check, him, the creator. Gradually, despite all his efforts and everything he unleashed, Veldanava found himself cornered. He had tried everything against an opponent whose power matched his own, and none of it was decisive. And in the end, against all expectations, it was Rimuru's own Manas, Ciel, who accomplished what Veldanava desired most: restoring Lucia's soul, achieving his ultimate goal in his place. Upon reuniting with Lucia, Veldanava had only just begun to regain the love he had lost, to rediscover what once defined his greatness, when Ivaraj suddenly appeared and devoured him, taking advantage of the moment of vulnerability in which he was still disoriented by his sudden return to himself. Absorbing both Lucia and Veldanava's broken heart, Ivaraj transformed into a new being, Leverager, and in turn attempted to destroy the world. But Rimuru, now carrying within him the power of the True Dragons, rose up to defeat it, and ultimately absorb it as well. Veldanava now most likely resides within Rimuru's imaginary space, somewhere deep within that infinite abyss. And that concludes the story of Veldanava, what he accomplished in ancient times, and what he did during the events of Volume 23. a character who, in the latest volumes, caused an overwhelming amount of destruction and chaos, yet who, when you take the time to truly look deeper, once acted with genuine sincerity and greatness in order to build this world. Everything might have turned out differently if his personality had not been twisted under the weight of grief. But now, he has finally found peace of soul, with Lucia by his side. And if, by any chance, he were to return once again, one can only hope that it would be the former Veldanava who comes back. Well, probably. At least we hope so. The original body of the Star King dragon, the very source of all dragons, the spiritual dragon Gaia, Milium's small companion, bestowed by Veldanava as a part of himself. Long ago, this elemental dragon was slain, through the schemes of the former Soma Empire. After his death, he received Milium's blessing and transformed into the Chaos Dragon, an entity so terrifying that Milium herself was forced to seal him, thus becoming her first official victim as a demon lord. Centuries later, during the exploration of ancient ruins, the seal was broken by the hands of Yuki and his allies. With Rimuru's decisive assistance, Milium nearly succeeded in subjugating him, but in the end, a new being was born from the soul of the Chaos Dragon, Gaia, hatched from an egg in the form of an adorable little dragon whom Milium now cherishes as her faithful pet. Gaia is now carefully protected by Rimuru and his inner circle, a vigilant guard watching over this precious little being at the heart of Tempest. True dragons, faithful to their nature, only prey upon monsters they have personally defeated. Thus, to accelerate Gaia's growth, Rimuru deployed a dedicated avatar within the labyrinth, where Milium and he engaged in intensive and methodical power leveling, farming enemies by the hundreds to feed Gaia. Exclusively with prey he had personally slain, an ingenious strategy. During the events of the latest volume, Gaia remained faithfully by Milium's side, her eternal companion. However, during the final battle, he devours the cores, spiritual hearts, of Veldanava and Lucia after they fall from Feldway. This monumental absorption triggered his supreme evolution. He became a true dragon, officially joining the ranks as the 5th member under the name Earth Star Dragon, Velgaia. Thanks to the designation carried out by Rimuru, an evolutionary path was opened, allowing nucleation, just like with the other true dragons. As an Earth Star form, Velgaia provided decisive support to Rimuru, actively contributing to the definitive defeat of Velgrynd in a confrontation where every single blow mattered. In the past, this was the adorable little Gaia, who could only communicate through irresistible QE, a cute and endearing companion who melted the hearts of everyone who approached her. But after this spectacular evolution, she acquired the ability to speak, adding a fascinating layer of personality to her already irresistible nature. Rimuru was born as a unique monster, a rare and exceptional creature from the origin. Thanks to the naming performed by Veldora, his power experienced a lightning explosion from the first moments of his reincarnation. This naming conferred upon him the blessing of Veldora, Crest of Storm, a divine additive that considerably strengthens his capacities. Furthermore, by devouring all the magical monsters present in Veldora's cave, he acquired a multitude of intrinsic capacities and various common skills. As a unique monster, although his magicule count would gradually decrease in a normal environment, Veldora's naming allowed his existence to reach a level equivalent to that of a greater demon. At the time of his reincarnation, his existence value was estimated around 10,000, but by the stage where he leaves Veldora's cave, he already possesses sufficient power to totally dominate a superior spirit, which suggests an existence value approaching 100,000 or even slightly higher. Regarding skills, the two main pillars are 2 in number, both obtained upon reincarnation. The first is the unique skill Great Sage, which can truly be considered Rimuru's faithful partner. It possesses a slight consciousness of its own, and by using the voice of the world, it plays the role of an indispensable navigator that supports Rimuru at every moment. The sub-skills it holds are thought acceleration, analytical appraisal, parallel calculation, chant annulment, and all of creation. The second is the unique skill Predator, which forms the very heart of Rimuru's existence. It was born from the deep regret of Satoru Mikami, who died without ever having known the experience of a romantic relationship, and from his ardent desire to fulfill this wish in his next life. This skill is a reinforced version of the intrinsic aptitude of absorption and dissolution specific to slimes, perfectly adapted to Rimuru. The sub-skills it includes are predation, analysis, stomach, mimicry, and isolation. In addition, Rimuru learned from Veldora the extra skill Mana Perception, which allows him to detect magic and precisely grasp his immediate environment. He also acquired, through his experiences in the water, the extra skill Water Manipulation. In terms of resistances at this stage, he already possesses Pain Nullification, Paralysis Resistance, Thermal Fluctuation Resistance, Electricity Resistance, and Physical Attack Resistance. For fatal techniques, Rimuru still cruelly lacks experience in matters of arts, so he has mastered none. Most descriptions show him directly using his raw skills. We now move on to the period corresponding to the end of the first season of the anime. At this time, Rimuru has already predated the head of the Fanged Wolf clan, Ifrit, the Orc Disaster, and Charybdis, thus appropriating their powers and achieving a spectacular evolution. Furthermore, he inherited Shizu's strength very early on. At this stage, he has obtained the title of Master of Monsters. Regarding his existence value after predating the Orc Lord, he acquired the rank of Demon Lord Seed. Since the greater demons were completely outclassed by his power, it can be estimated that he possessed at minimum an existence value on the order of 400,000. In terms of skills, in addition to the unique skill Great Sage, which has accompanied him since his reincarnation, he also gained the unique skill Degenerate, inherited from Shizu. Degenerate possesses the sub-skills Synthesis and Separation, which provide exceptional versatility. Thanks to these abilities, Great Sage was able to create an innumerable quantity of additional skills. Among the acquired skills are Multilayer Barrier, Molecular Manipulation, Black Flame, Black Lightning, Ultra Speed Regeneration, and Sticky Steel Thread. Furthermore, by predating the Orc Lord, he integrated the skill Starved into Predator, causing it to evolve into the unique skill Gluttony. This new form retains the original capabilities of Predator while adding 3 new sub-skills: Corrosion, which allows the target to be corroded and suffer attacks that cause decomposition; Receive, which allows the acquisition of abilities obtained by monsters under his influence; and Provide, which makes it possible to grant a portion of his own abilities to monsters placed under his influence or bound by soul. The storage capacity of the stomach was also greatly increased. Finally, the predation of Charybdis granted him the extra skills Magic Interference and Gravity Manipulation. During his stay in Inglacia, he obtained Elemental Magic, and by saving the children from magical overload, he acquired Spatial Motion. As for magic, thanks to the sub-skills of Great Sage and the vast knowledge accumulated in the countless grimoires of the Inglacia library, Rimuru mastered all magic known and widespread within human society. The demon summoning he used to offer a subordinate to Ramirez originates precisely from the magic acquired during the Adventurer examination. In terms of resistances, by the end of the first season, those in his possession include Pain Nullification, Thermal Fluctuation Resistance, Corrosion Resistance, Electricity Resistance, Physical Attack Resistance, and Paralysis Resistance. From a technical standpoint, after accumulating extensive combat experience against the Orc Lord, Charybdis, and other powerful adversaries, his mastery of combat techniques progressed dramatically compared to his early days after reincarnation. Furthermore, by receiving sword instruction from Hakuro, the white wolf with razor-sharp fangs, even more significant improvements can be expected in the future. Regarding lethal techniques, he acquired the secret technique of the Oboro School's Demon Blade, as well as the martial arts derived from it. He then further developed them to incorporate magical manipulation into his arsenal. We now arrive at the period corresponding to the second season of the anime. Rimuru, having evolved into a true demon lord, defeated Clayman and asserted his supremacy. By becoming an awakened demon lord, he obtained a phenomenal additional power, reaching a level capable of rivaling the most eminent beings of this world. With this demon lord awakening, his race transcended that of slimes to become a superior spiritual being, a supreme demonic slime. At this stage, his titles include that of the newborn among the demon lords. As for his existence value, the Demon Lord Awakening multiplied his energy reserves by 10, while greatly reinforcing his physical abilities. This caused his existence value to skyrocket, which is estimated to be between 3 and 4 million. Regarding skills, upon his evolution into a Demon Lord, certain extra skills were optimized and evolved into unique skills that are deeply bound to the soul. The 5 newly acquired unique skills are as follows. The first is Universal Perception, an advanced evolution of magic perception, which drastically extends its detection range. It allows the user to grasp not only hostile presences, but also magical and physical attacks of all kinds. The second is Demon Lord Haki, resulting from the integration of intimidation-related skills such as coercion and magic manipulation. It does not merely paralyze the opponent through fear, it can exert such overwhelming pressure that breathing becomes impossible, and it can even be used as a direct offensive attack. The third is Enhanced Double Body, a perfect and superior version of Body Double. Its sturdiness is such that it can serve as a vessel for Veldora himself, and the number of skills it can deploy far surpasses that of the era of simple clones. The fourth is Universal Thread, a complete evolution of the extra skill Sticky Steel Thread. Although the details remain vague within the work, it can be assumed that it produces threads with extensibility superior to that of a spider's silk, possessing durability and cutting power that exceeds steel. Furthermore, these threads presumably allow for a multitude of varied applications. The fifth is Universal Shapeshift, a skill that allows seamless transitions between slime form and human form, while also granting the ability to assume various other appearances. In Rimuru's case, he is capable of imitating species that he has previously predated. Meanwhile, Great Sage, relentlessly pursuing further evolution, attempted countless times to break through to a new stage. By sacrificing the unique skill Degenerate inherited from Shizu, it shattered the shell of unique skills and became the ultimate skill Raphael, a power capable of interfering even with the laws of the world. Its sub-skills are primarily focused on analysis and cognition, thought acceleration, analytical appraisal, parallel calculation, chant annulment, synthesis and separation, and alteration. Its performance experienced a dramatic increase compared to the era of Great Sage. Thought acceleration is now 1,000 times faster. The precision of its analysis made it possible to instantly decipher Veldora's infinite prison analysis, which was supposed to require 100 years, and thereby release him. Moreover, a clear will emerged, allowing Raphael to act independently as Rimuru's representative. It thus executed the secret arcane soul resurrection to bring Xion and the other victims back to life. After the acquisition of Raphael, another miracle occurred with the obtainment of the ultimate skill Beelzebub. Born from the integration of the unique skill Gluttony and the Merciless skill, this Demon Series ultimate skill belongs to the lineage of the 7 deadly sins. The consumption-related sub-skills it includes are Predation, Stomach, Mimicry, Isolation, Corrosion, Soul Consumption, and Food Chain. Compared to the era of Gluttony, 2 new sub-skills were added. Soul Consumption, which literally allows the devouring of the opponent's soul to cause their total annihilation, and Food Chain, which enables the automatic acquisition of abilities obtained by subordinates or those connected through the Soul Corridor, while also allowing Rimuru to provide them with a portion of his own powers. Subsequently, Rimuru obtained 2 additional ultimate skills. The first is Veldora, bearing the name of the Storm Dragon. Its possession derives in part from the connection established through the Soul Corridor with Veldora. The special sub-skills it encompasses number 3, Storm-type magic, Summoning of the Storm Dragon, and Restoration of the Storm Dragon. It makes possible the use of the magic employed by Veldora, the summoning of Veldora himself, or even his complete recreation. The second is Uriel, born from the analysis of the infinite prison that sealed Veldora. Thanks to the Food Chain sub-skill of Beelzebub, which allows the integration of skills transmitted by subordinates, Rimuru combined and assimilated various abilities to ultimately obtain this ultimate skill. It belongs to the angelic series, more precisely to the lineage of the virtues. The powerful sub-skills it contains number 4, Infinite Prison, Law Manipulation, Universal Barrier, and Spatial Domination. Specialized in the management of space, it allows control over virtually all phenomena and all skills. A perfect symbol of the deep bonds that unite Rimuru with his subordinates, this ability is normally reserved for legendary heroes. However, it is precisely because Rimuru cherishes the bonds with his companion so deeply that he was able to acquire it. In terms of magic, the evolution into Raphael made its usage far smoother and more efficient. Thanks to the sub-skill All of Creation, he can now employ any existing magic, with the exception of original magic. The types he uses most frequently are elemental magic, physical magic, spiritual magic, the summoning of greater spirits, and the summoning of greater demons. Added to this, through the acquisition of Veldora, is the ability to employ storm-type magic mastered by the dragon himself. Among his other assets are the original physical magic Megiddo developed by Great Sage, the advanced spatial transfer technique created by Raphael, as well as the secret technique Soul Resurrection through Bonds, which allows the restoration of souls and the revival of the dead. Regarding resistances, they have undergone massive evolution. Pain nullification, physical attack nullification, natural effects nullification, abnormal condition nullification, mental attack resistance, and spiritual and magical attack resistance. Thus, Rimuru now possesses near absolute protection against virtually all forms of aggression. On the side of technical mastery, the experience of combat against Clayman further refined his skills. Rimuru's technique relies largely on the support of Raphael. As the performance of this skill was increased tenfold, his overall mastery followed the same spectacular upward trajectory. We now move to the period following the third season of the anime, after the events of Ruberios and the war against the Eastern Empire. Thanks to this war, Rimuru evolved into a true dragon, propelling him to a colossal level of power and allowing him to enter the circle of transcendent beings. In terms of race and title, Rimuru became an ultimate slime, the highest rank among superior spiritual beings, regarded as the ultimate draconic equivalent. The integration of the draconic factor triggered this evolution. However, although Feldway and Michael also incorporated a draconic factor, they did not reach the stage of a true dragon. This suggests that the fact that Rimuru was born as a unique monster formed from Veldora's accumulated magicules played a decisive role in this transformation. Among his titles is Chaos Creator, obtained after the preliminary skirmishes against the Empire, when he provided souls to his subordinates, allowing a multitude of them to evolve into awakened demon lords. He is also secretly called the Lord of Mercy. His existence value exploded with his evolution into a true dragon. In his normal state, his draconic release state, it reaches the astonishing figure of 8,681,123. By adding the existence value contained within his divine weapon, the draconic magical sword, 2,680,000, the total reaches 10,961,123. However, when he absorbs the existence value of Veldora, 88,126,579, and that of Velgrynd, 74,350,087, his total value reaches the unbelievable sum of 173,437,789, a definitively transcendent level. As for his intrinsic abilities, they have been reinforced at every stage of evolution and are now of a terrifying power. Rimuru's intrinsic abilities are Universal Perception, Dragon Spirit Haki, Universal Shapeshift, Parallel Existence, Universal Thread, and Infinite Regeneration. Universal Perception detects the surrounding magic and converts it into a 360-degree field of vision. Originally, its effective range already covered several kilometers, but through successive enhancements, it now reaches several dozen kilometers. When combined with Ciel's calculation capabilities, it provides a quasi-divine perception, capable of anticipating absolutely all attacks. Dragon Spirit Haki is the aura inherent to true dragons. Merely by releasing it, he can violently repel enemies or force them into submission. He can also coat it around his weapons or his strikes, reminiscent of the ancient use of magic manipulation, somewhat like Armament Haki in One Piece, or Nen in Hunter x Hunter. Universal Shapeshift allows free transitions between slime form and human form, or vice versa. It also grants the ability to assume countless other appearances. For Rimuru, this includes all species he has predated up to this point, but its enhanced performance suggests that he may now be capable of imitating virtually anything he has observed or analyzed. Parallel Existence is the perfect and superior version of enhanced double body. The clones created in this way possess sufficient sturdiness to serve as vessels for Veldora, and the number of skills they can deploy far exceeds that of the era of simple clones. Although the work does not explicitly depict the creation of a parallel existence, certain elements strongly suggest that enhanced double body has evolved into a form capable of generating truly independent parallel existences. Universal Thread is the complete and superior version of the extra skill Sticky Thread. It produces threads with elasticity and durability far beyond those of a spider, endowed with hardness and cutting power that vastly surpass steel. Moreover, these threads can serve as vectors for special effects such as telepathy or image transmission. It is precisely this capability that enabled the development of telephones and televisions within the work. Even the ongoing internet project in Tempest relies on these ultra-resistant threads. One could almost call them divine fibers. Infinite regeneration is without a doubt one of the most aberrant and terrifying intrinsic abilities. As long as energy is not depleted, it allows literally infinite regeneration of any part of the body, no matter how severely damaged it may be. Compared to the previous ultra-speed regeneration, the speed and scope of recovery have reached an even more insane level. Even damage that exceeded the limits of ultra-speed regeneration can now be perfectly restored. Normally, ultra-speed regeneration should have evolved into God-speed regeneration, but Rimuru directly obtained infinite regeneration, most likely due to his unique origin as a unique monster born from the accumulated magicules of Veldora. This recovery ability is described in the work as truly abnormal, to the point of being labeled a power capable of taming the void itself. Cheyenne also possesses a sub-skill of infinite regeneration, but hers has clear limitations in terms of energy. At Rimuru's scale, however, he is capable of circulating energy through the void, making his regeneration virtually limitless and utterly absurd. Regarding ultimate skills, Rimuru now possesses two main ones. Originally numbering 4, they were optimized and fused through Ciel's alterations, thus becoming far more efficient and easier to wield. The first is Shub Niggurath, a skill primarily dedicated to managing Rimuru's own abilities as well as those of his high-ranking subordinates. It encompasses 4 sub-skills: skill creation, skill duplication, skill granting, and skill storage. Rimuru almost never uses these sub-skills directly. It is nearly exclusively Ciel who manages them. Skill storage converts Rimuru's skills, as well as those transmitted through the food chain, into information, making them reproducible at will. Skill duplication then faithfully recreates these stored skills in the form of information. Thanks to the combination of these two sub-skills, it becomes possible to reproduce the same abilities indefinitely. Skill creation uses the duplicated skills as a foundation to, through Ciel's alterations, generate entirely new skills, a capability so powerful that it can even create extra ultimate class skills. Finally, skill granting allows newly created skills to be bestowed upon and reinforced within subordinates connected through the soul corridor. The second is Azathoth, an ultimate skill bearing the name of a deity, endowed with absolutely uncontestable power among Royal Series skills. Born from the evolution into Ciel, it integrates the empty shells of Raphael and Beelzebub, which form the core of Rimuru's soul, while sacrificing Veldora and Velgrynd, who possessed authority over particle interference. It is most likely an evolution primarily based on Beelzebub, but the result is an ultimate skill of divine power worthy of its name. The sub-skills of Azathoth are all of an overwhelming level that tolerates no comparison. Soul consumption, void collapse, imaginary space, space-time domination, multidimensional barrier, true dragon nucleation, and true dragon release. 7 versatile, omnipotent sub-skills of utterly absurd power. Multidimensional barrier, as its name implies, constructs multiple layers of extremely powerful defense. It creates absolute defense through dimensional discontinuity, the ultimate evolution of barrier-type skills, born from the enhancement of universal barrier through the integration of space-time sub-skills. Space-time domination allows, thanks to Ciel's precise calculations, instantaneous movement through mere intent, or free movement even within stopped time. It is also indispensable for exercising time stop. This is an ultra-evolved version of spatial domination. Soul consumption can completely devour the opponent's soul to cause their total annihilation, although its predation efficiency slightly decreases against living beings, something that would pose absolutely no problem for the current Rimuru. It can also absorb and neutralize absolutely all judgment type or release type attacks. In perfect synergy with Ciel, everything that is absorbed is exhaustively analyzed. This is the transcendent version of the predation characteristic of slimes. Imaginary space refers to the chaotic world that extends within Rimuru's stomach. Once trapped inside, it is virtually impossible to escape. This is the supreme evolution integrating stomach and isolation. By combining this sub-skill with soul consumption and space-time domination, Rimuru can deploy a virtual space within a designated area. As this space is a completely separate virtual dimension, it can entirely neutralize the effects of all dimensional or spatial type skills. True Dragon Release and True Dragon Nucleation are sub-skills of terrifying power. True Dragon Release is a variant of parallel existence that allows Veldora and Velgrynd, as well as their power, to exist simultaneously, assimilated into Rimuru and active in the outside world. When activated, an alternate body of the corresponding True Dragon is created, allowing Rimuru's magic to be injected into Veldora and Velgrynd in order to fully release them, thus placing them alongside Rimuru in a state where all three True Dragons can fight at full power. True Dragon Nucleation, on the other hand, uses Veldora and Velgrynd as cores to bestow colossal power upon Rimuru's weapon, the Draconic Magical Sword. However, what makes this ultimate skill truly terrifying is Void Collapse, a sub-skill that manipulates the ultimate destructive energy capable of disrupting the world itself. Only Ciel has succeeded in mastering it, and this energy possesses sufficient potential to completely reshape the world. Manas Ciel. Rimuru houses within himself a Manas, an evolved entity born from the evolution of an ultimate skill. During the titanic confrontation against Velgrynd, Rimuru named Raphael Ciel, which awakened clear consciousness and genuine emotions within her. Thus, she became a Manas, an evolved existence endowed with a complete personality, far beyond that of a mere skill. This transformation into a Manas caused her calculation abilities to explode far beyond what Raphael was capable of during the era of ultimate skills. Among the sub-skills that belong to Rimuru's various ultimate skills, thought acceleration, future attack prediction, analysis and appraisal, parallel calculation, integration and separation, chant annulment, food chain, law manipulation, alteration of abilities, space-time leap, and others, all have been integrated into Manas Ciel. These sub-skills, already powerful, can now be used with even greater performance. Although conscious separately from Rimuru, Ciel can employ Rimuru's skills to fight or to modify abilities at her discretion. Magic. Rimuru learned from Luminous the secret arcane of faith and grace, which constitutes the very source of holy magic. He thus became capable of wielding holy magic. Furthermore, he personally created 2 original spells. Sacred Birthday, which allows resurrection as long as sufficient energy is available, and Argos, God's Eye, a physical surveillance magic developed from Megiddo. Resistances. His resistances have progressed even further. Physical attack, nullification, natural effects nullification, abnormal condition nullification, mental attack nullification, and resistance to spiritual and magical attacks. The number of resistances he can completely neutralize has increased even more. Technical mastery. Battles against true dragons granted him colossal experience, causing his mastery to leap to an unprecedented level. Already capable of standing alone against a draconic race, his technique was exceptional even before. Thanks to the constant and prolonged support of Raphael, and now Ciel, Rimuru acts in a nearly optimal manner, whether consciously or unconsciously. When combined with his innate talent for strategy and negotiation, his overall mastery has reached a peak that very few can rival. With Raphael's evolution into Ciel, the technical support became even more precise, creating an abyssal gap compared to his previous versions. Fatal techniques. Drawing inspiration from Hinata's Melt Slash, Rimuru created his own original technique, Storm Break. After the Tenma War, Rimuru became incomparably more powerful. His strength has now reached that of the absolute strongest, an abnormal power that surpasses even that of a god. Race, title, secret name. His race, title, and secret name remain unchanged. Ultimate Slime, Chaos Creator, and Lord of Mercy. Existence value. Thanks to all the experiences he has accumulated, his existence value has skyrocketed. Even in a state of draconic release, he far surpasses Velzard. Since he was able to rival Velgrynd, it can be estimated that his existence value greatly exceeds 10 billion, and even 50 billion would not be surprising. Equipment. The Genesis-level draconic sword that Rimuru possessed evolved into a divine weapon named Elpis after Rimuru bestowed that name upon it. During this naming, such a colossal amount of energy was absorbed that even Rimuru himself felt fatigue, proof that Elpis truly reached divine rank. Its durability was greatly reinforced, and unlike the era of the simple draconic sword, it can now integrate draconic cores. By inserting these cores, it becomes a draconic sword capable of completely destroying another dimension or another world with a single strike. Skills. In addition to draconic release, the release of Velzard has now been added. To draconic nucleation are added the nucleation of Velzard and that of Gaia. Thus, True Dragon release, Storm, Scorching, White Ice. True Dragon nucleation, Storm, Scorching, White Ice, Terrestrial Stars. Essence of Azathoth. The ultimate skill bearing the name of a deity, Azathoth, which Rimuru obtained, has at its true core a mass of colossal energy and the control mechanism that allows it to be manipulated. The auxiliary subskills are numerous and varied, but its essence lies in the control of void collapse. At the time of its acquisition, Rimuru struggled to handle this energy of nothingness, to the point that even experiments within the labyrinth were deemed too dangerous. It was in the world beyond the limits, a risk-free space where time is practically infinite, that Ciel was able to conduct her in-depth research. Thanks to this, Rimuru can now perfectly control this energy at will. This void collapse is distinct from the nothingness that exists in Hell. It is an accumulation of negative energy originating from the world of the end. Its danger and power are utterly incomparable to the ordinary energies of this world. As an illustration, when this energy of nothingness was applied to basic elemental magic such as fireball, the result produced an explosion equivalent to, or even surpassing, nuclear magic. As for Azathoth as a whole, its performance has evolved considerably. At present, even within the suspended world where its activation was originally impossible, Rimuru can deploy all of its sub-skills. Skills bearing divine names are not constrained by the prohibitions of the world and possess properties close to Rimuru's own abilities. This is likely what allows him to activate them even within a suspended world. Technical mastery. During the Great Tenma War, Rimuru confronted Michael, Feldway, Milim, Ivaraj, and Veldanava, accumulating battles of extreme intensity that propelled his mastery to an even higher level. She was already exceptional, but Ciel's support, now even more refined, creates an abyssal difference compared to the pre-war period. Rimuru alone, without Ciel's assistance, was able to stand his ground against Veldanava. This demonstrates that he ranks among the very best in the world in terms of pure technique. Special abilities, Void Deployment. Although this name does not explicitly appear in the work, and was therefore coined by me for the sake of clarity, it refers to a technique unique to Rimuru. He deploys his Dragon Spirit Haki, which he then converts into Void Collapse, thereby neutralizing enemy attacks through negative energy. This method nullifies not only Velzard's assaults, but also the void wielded by Gaia and Tensura. Special abilities, Void Collapse. This is the ultimate destructive energy capable of disturbing the chaotic world itself. Only a level of computational ability comparable to that of Amanas allows for complete and perfect control over it. This abnormal energy, possessed of immeasurable power, is the very energy that Veldanava, the creator god, used to give birth to the world. If perfectly mastered and stored, it possesses sufficient density and quantity to create tens of thousands of worlds. Thanks to the infinite time spent within the space-time discontinuity to which Feldway sent him, Rimuru accumulated within his stomach a reserve capable of recreating the world tens of thousands of times. Veldanava himself lacked such storage capacity and thus completely exhausted it. Rimuru, thanks to imaginary space, can hoard an infinite quantity of it, eliminating any risk of disappearance. In this respect, he surpasses even Veldanava. In truth, a form of void also exists in Hell, and it too is a destructive energy. However, Rimuru's void collapse operates on an entirely different level. It was once believed that the void merely absorbed spiritual particles, but in reality, it can devour even informational particles, the very source of all existence. In doing so, it erases any commands inscribed upon these informational particles, rendering ineffective not only extra skills or unique skills that manipulate magic, but even ultimate skills that operate directly on spiritual informational particles. Once this energy is placed under complete control, it becomes capable of voraciously consuming even the particles that infinite regeneration would normally restore, an energy of extreme insolence and lethality. Special abilities, Secret Method of the Circle. This technique, known as the Secret Method of the Circle, uses sub-skills of spatial domination to circulate void energy within a closed space. Diablo employed a similar method. However, circulating void is extremely perilous and causes progressive disintegration of the body. To use this technique in a stable manner, the infinite regeneration inherent to Rimuru's slime cells is indispensable. The speed of regeneration surpasses the rate of disintegration caused by the void, and the energy consumed for this regeneration is compensated by the very circulation of the void itself, rendering the available energy virtually infinite. As Lavoisier would say, nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. Ciel transmitted this technique to Diablo, and it is possible that one day it may be taught to other users of Void Collapse. Fatal Techniques. During the Great Tenma War, Rimuru unveiled several devastating fatal techniques. The first is the Imaginary Blade, an individual technique that consumes the target's spiritual particles in order to hurl them into Rimuru's imaginary space. Developed by Ciel to surpass Melt Slash and 100 Petals Rush, its final power can easily sweep away monsters whose existence value reaches hundreds of millions. The second is the Myriad of Varied Petals, Rimuru's supreme arcane, surpassing even the Imaginary Blade. The sword's trajectories multiply into thousands, even tens of thousands, making the strikes impossible to anticipate and relentlessly tearing apart the enemy. Of colossal power, it can repel a fatal technique from an opponent with a higher existence value and reduce them to dust. Now capable of integrating Void Collapse, its destructiveness belongs to an entirely different dimension. The third is the Imaginary Eating Collapse Sword, a new technique created by Rimuru, which charges the sword with void to make the enemy's energy disappear and then absorb it by devouring their soul. There you have it. We have reviewed the key stages of Rimuru's growth and evolution of power. What did you think? By the end of the very last volume, his strength had become truly abnormal, but his growth journey possesses a rich and coherent story. When one looks at his final power and recalls the time of his evolution into Demon Lord or his very beginnings, one cannot help but think, wow, back then, Rimuru was still far from the mark. If you have any opinions or impressions on this analysis, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to read them.